everybody. I'm Nina Soden, urban fantasy author of the Blood Angel series and the Sector C series. And today I am so excited because I have Ashley Chappell here with me. And she is going to talk about her books, her process, her life. And so I'm going to just dive right in and start asking her some questions. Tell me, how many books have you published at this point?
Right now I have 4 out, 1 traditionally published and 3 that are self-published after taking back rights from a previous publisher.
Okay.
And I've got 2 more in progress.
Wow. And what is that process? Now, why did you take back the rights from your traditionally published books? What is the difference? Where do you feel the differences between traditional and self-publishing?
With the initial one, I was just so excited to have gotten my first acceptance, and we went to publish you that I believed all of the kind of wild, outlandish things they said they were going to do, like do billboards with my books and, bust ads, bench ads in big cities, things like that, that never, ever happened. And there were a lot of breaches of contract along the way that were just unforgivable. I think one of the events that I think I attended with you was one that I showed up without books because I had
Yes.
placed my order with them 2 months in advance and they never showed up.
Oh my God. That's a
Yeah, so lots of
nightmare.
things like that. Yes.
Okay.
So I was able to
So
republish and do my own covers.
that's awesome. As a
Mhm.
self-published author, I love the fact that you do have your hand in every aspect of it. If you don't like something, you change it. And you can't
Mhm.
necessarily do that with a traditionally published book. So,
Yes.
what is the hardest part for you in writing a book?
For me, when I usually come to the point that I can't progress further, it's when I am getting to the point that my characters have completely decided they don't like the way it's going. Is I'm an outliner. I always have been an outliner, but I can't stick to it very long because once you get to that certain point where your characters have developed in a certain way, but your plot line isn't quite a natural progression for them anymore, you can't force it. And I
Yeah.
tend to fight that when I get to that realization. I don't know if it's stubbornness or just what, but I try to cling to that outline so hard that I just get to a brick wall and I cannot. Do not pass go. Do not collect 200.
Yeah. And then
That's actually one
eventually,
reason that I haven't finished.
so eventually do you scrap it and start over, or can you take it back a little ways and readjust?
Generally, a combination of the two. If there's something that's just desperately important that I need to happen in the plot, I'll go back and seed that better, readjust certain things that happen. But once my characters are developed in a certain way, that's generally the part that I can't change.
Yeah.
So it means going back, scrapping even if it's the last 50% of the book outline, changing it to do that. I think I just threw out 2 chapters of the whip that I'm on right now that I already had 75,000 words in.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah.
Yeah, that can be painful, but so can editing and so can rewrites and
Yes.
yeah. So how do you come up with the premise of your books? And is it something where as soon as you get that idea, you can start outlining it? Is it something that kind of mills in your brain for a while? What's that process like for you?
A lot of times it's milling. There are certain whips that I've started outlines for that I haven't gotten into actually writing yet because I'm still researching and developing and pulling more ideas for the worlds. I do a lot of high fantasy, so having everything defined for the world that I'm building, even if I don't use all of those elements, I need to know them so I can use them as tools in the book. Because a lot of times some obscure world building that you don't have to describe can still be a good lever for your plot.
Yeah, I completely agree. Tell us a little bit about your whips that you're working on right now.
Well, book 4 is the one that I've been desperate to get out. Book 3 of my Dreams of Chaos series was what I have out currently. That one came out in 2017. I thought I would have book 4 out in 2018, but my characters took me straight to that just complete wall, and I've been trying to figure out how to fix that issue. So I put that one on the back burner for a while, and I started working on something completely different for me. It's an adult urban fantasy that's still very tongue-in-cheek. Everything I write has a humor bent to it, but this one, and I'm going to refer to some notes too, because the quickest way
Yeah.
to shut me up is to ask me what my book is about.
No, please. That's why
So,
we're here.
yes, exactly. So with this one, like I said, it's an urban fantasy, a lot of dark humor involved in it too, and action. So in
Oh, I
this
like
one,
that.
Bastien Oh, yeah. So Bastien Boudier is a former con artist turned damned soul who died in 1972. She accidentally releases one of hell's most dangerous captives and gets saddled between heaven and hell, trying to escape trying to catch the escapee before it can reignite the war for creation. So the powers that be, though, keep throwing obstacles in her way, and she figures out that some pretty big players don't actually want her to succeed. So she does fail as Lucifer's current bounty hunter for this escapee. She ends up being his patsy in the war to come.
So is this
See, even reading, I can't get it.
is this Harrowers Hawk of Hell that you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so
it
this
is.
is a gritty adventure in
Mhm.
which hell is a job for life, or rather a job for the afterlife. This is how you
Yes.
described it? Okay, now this
Yes.
sounds very exciting to me. I love this. Now, is it part of a series or is it a standalone book?
It, what I would like to do with these, I already have the next 3 books kind of set out in mind, but what I really want
Nice.
them to be is episodic, where it's a self-contained story within each one, and the other one, you'll build the outer world story as it goes, but
Right.
no cliffhangers,
You don't have to read
no
one
anything.
in order to read the next. You can read them out of
Exactly.
order. Perfect.
Exactly. So there's a little sleuthing involved with it too, but it's been a
Okay.
lot of fun for me to write something completely different. And this is also the first main character I've ever written that's a person of color.
Okay.
Bastien is a third generation. Oh, she goes by Bass in the books. She's a third generation Haitian American who grew up just impoverished in the Seventh Ward in New Orleans, and her life, part of part of her life as a marginalized person is what drives her plot through the entire story, through the entire outer world stories that I have envisioned too. Her being used to being the underdog is what gives her that edge constantly.
So
And she's amazing and so snarky.
how much research did you have to do to kind of get into that mindset?
I am still doing it. It's an ongoing. There are a lot of great resources, whether it's reading biographies and histories to really get you in the feel for what was it like to grow up in the 1940s in New Orleans as a
Yeah.
Black person, and those resources have been invaluable. I've talked to a professor at the University of trying to remember, it's the University of Louisiana, New Orleans, something like that. I am blanking completely on the on the title, but I've talked to him several times, and he has been just a fount of information from his personal experiences, the things that his mother told him even previously growing up to that, to the way dynamics worked between. You had the lighter skinned Creoles who had different experience from the darker skinned, just an amazing dynamic.
Yeah.
But before anything even comes close to touching it, I'm going to have several sensitivity readers. Because
Yes.
even with the research that I've done, it doesn't mean that I can write a Black person well.
Right. Or
It's
their dialogue.
any person of color.
Yeah.
Yes, that's not my experience, and I don't want to try to represent a person of color poorly.
So how long do you think it'll be before that is finished and to print?
I thought I would be finished with it last year.
Okay.
But we're also building a house on the weekend, so it's cut into my writing time quite a lot lately. But my goal for this one is to have it finished before the end of the year and have it to sensitivity and beta readers by before springtime.
Okay.
So I would
Wow.
say probably not before next summer. Is this
About
I
how
want to
far
put this
are
one through a
you?
lot of edits.
About how
I've
far
got it
are you in?
about 75,000 words right now. I expect
Wow.
it to be around 100.
Okay, so you're close. 3/4 of the way in.
But in all honesty, I've been about 75,000 words in for the last 3 months.
Okay. That's that. Hey, that's all right
It
too.
happens.
Now, you also have A Mother of Gods, Dreams of Chaos book number 4 getting ready. So tell us a little bit
Yes.
about that series for people that have not read anything about that series. What are the first 3 books? What is it about? What can they expect if they pick up a copy?
Sure. Well, the series itself, it's all high fantasy young adult, and this one is it spans multiple worlds and realms that are all set in a sentient god universe. It's
Okay.
also pretty tongue in cheek because, like I said, I can't write anything that isn't at least a little bent toward humor. But everything begins when a little orphaned girl named Alice discovers that she can remake the world according to the fantasies that she's writing in her journal. And it's, you can only imagine what a 7-year-old would come up with to write in her journal for the world to actually be. So
Yeah.
Trotter is the teen demigoddess who is struggling with issues of premature smiting. Trying to get used to her godly powers that are growing with her with puberty, and the reluctant Pantheon who tries to stay away from the affairs of the mortals have tasked her with finding Alice and stopping her from unmaking the world.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there is a very dark god who is supposed to be banished to a locked realm, never to return again, but he has been encouraging her and protecting her and hiding her from their sight.
Okay.
So everything
Very
falls to Trotter
cool.
to find Alice. And that is the first book, Alice Will. Everything launches from there with Tilt, the second book, and A God of Gods, the third book, in which we find the ways that uh, chaos, which is the God universe, has actually been interacting with the mortals and the gods behind the scenes unknowingly.
So is book 4 going to be the final book in the series, or will this series continue and continue and continue?
Uh, Book 4 will be the final book in this series of it, but there are other standalone spin-off novels for different characters and different timelines. But
Okay. And are
those
all of
are,
your, go ahead.
I was just say, those are definitely going to be far behind this one.
Okay. So they're yet to come. So do you
Yes,
are all of your books available in paperback and ebook, all online, anywhere you can get books?
they sure are.
Good. All right. So as an author, I read a lot, lots of books. And I think that you should always be reading. What is your take on that? Do you read a lot? Do you stay within your own genre? Do you branch out and read just about anything? And how often and how much do you read in like a month?
Oh gosh, easily 10 books a month, sometimes more depending. Although right now
Wow.
I've been kind of mired into some like 600 to 1,000 page fantasy novels, so that cuts
Whew.
into the actual numbers. But I read at least an hour before bed every night, at least an hour, and then I usually read during my lunches.
Okay.
And anytime I take a break during the day while we're teleworking, it's easy just to grab the book and take your 15-minute break. Oh, are you there? Sorry, my computer tried to go to sleep.
Nope, I'm here.
Okay, good deal. But I read mostly within the fantasy genre, but I also get into a lot of historical novels.
Okay.
It just There is no better inspiration for your plot than history because everything wackadoo has already happened for the most part.
Yeah, that is true. Now, you mentioned that
Mhm.
you read on your lunch break. So that means you are not, I assume, a full-time writer like we all
No.
desperately want to be. So what do
Yes,
you
that is the
do?
dream one day.
Yes.
I, by day, I work for Marshall Space Flight Center, sorry, at NASA.
Oh, wow. That's
Yes.
amazing. What do you do?
I do personnel for one of the larger engineering organizations within Marshall.
Okay.
So it's not quite as exciting as the fantasy realms, but
Okay.
it's very satisfying because we're doing such exciting things right now at NASA. Actually, I think I'm repping with my Artemis
Ah,
polo
yes,
from
you
work.
are. Yes, you are.
Did not
Okay.
even intend that.
Hey, give props to where you work. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about your writing process. I want to go back to that because you mentioned that you like to plot. You mentioned that you like to allow your characters to take you where they're going to take you if you run into a dead end. I am a pantster. I definitely sit down
Mhm.
and I just start typing. I do plot a little as I go, but not pre-plotting unless it's something that I really have to do a lot of research on. How much pre-plotting, like before you start writing any words in your document, how much does it look like on paper for you? How much have you researched?
Depending on the story, I keep most of my notes organized in OneNote, and I'll start a notebook for a project and then have maybe 10 to 20 different tabs for different aspects of the world. But I do a lot of kind of brainstorming sessions that are telling the story of a character, that are if there's a character that I'm trying to figure out how they fit in, and am still outlining with that character. I'll write their backstory or write a conversation that they might be having with another character, just something to get a better feel for them. When it comes to research notes, I'll keep, binders with links to things that I want to include. If it's my magical systems, keeping one binder with all of my rules clearly laid out. And anytime I encounter something that might be a gray area, well, I've got a binder for that.
Yeah. Do you
So there's a lot.
Do you ever publish that stuff? Like, do you have a blog or a website where you kind of post your backstories for your characters or anything like that?
I haven't put that out just because I've never wanted to get into it and edit it before I did any of that. And I don't really want somebody to see my stream of consciousness.
Okay.
So they might lock me up. You never know.
So I assume you've never done anything like Wattpad or anything like that, where it's open to the public, they can see what you're writing even before editing process.
No, I have not.
What are your thoughts on those types of programs?
I think they're great for people who write, more. I guess I should back up to when I write, I end up inserting little notes as I'm going. I'll have here's my chunk of this is what I'm writing, and then here's my italicized, hey, I don't like this note. This is what I think I need to look at some more. Yeah. So if you're looking at mine, it would be like, imagine a notebook that's covered in markouts and highlights and side notes in the margins. That's pretty much what my manuscripts look like, even on the computer.
Okay.
So I don't think it would be something that somebody else wants to see. It's a mess.
It'd be kind of like looking into your brain as you're writing, which may
and
be
nobody wants that.
It may be interesting. Who knows? And this is a question I like to ask writers because I know what mine is like. But if somebody were to just go on your computer, what's your Google search look like?
Well, right now it's a lot of concrete information for the house that we're building.
Okay.
But assuming that I'm doing nothing but just doing my research, it's a lot of historical documents, a lot of, I have a subscription to a forgotten text website based out of the UK that has these amazing out of print books from the 1800s, the 1600s, basically everything that's ever been written. You've got things on numerology, like early Solomon's Key copies, things like that are great for writing anything that is supernatural, because you've got the entire history of the occult out there. So wow. I do a lot of reading like that, especially for Harrowers, because the early occult influences have really had a big drive on some of the characters that I have. Like I have, for instance, there was the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn that was kind of a more of a cult, I should say, than anything. Yeah. But I've taken a spin-off group and created the Order of the Golden Calves for the book, who actually create and falsify religious items of religious significance. So they have their own version of the Holy Shroud that once they've convinced enough people that, oh, this was actually a fragment, well, then they can use that because it has the power of belief in it. Right. So their entire order, the Golden Calves, of course, is dedicated to creating false idols.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just to harvest the power of belief.
And is that in the series that you've written?
In the Harrowers. It's okay. A large, in the entire series there, they have a large part.
Okay. Wow. Very cool. Anything else you would like to share with our viewers just about you? And you mentioned, no, I'm gonna ask. You mentioned that you are building a house. You're building a house.
Yes, with these hands.
Do you or your husband have a background in building things like that?
My husband has much more of a background. He grew up on a farm where everything was built, fixed, repaired, stripped down, rebuilt. So he's got a lot more experience than I do. He's done framing, everything, plumbing. He is also, he was an electrician for years, and he's an electrical engineer now. So he's already attuned to doing all of those things for us. But with this one, there wasn't really anybody, there were no contractors in town that were familiar with what we're doing, because what we're doing, it's not a stick frame house. It's
Okay.
well, it's all off grid out in the middle of 100 acres, just in a beautiful mountain area of central
Wow.
Alabama. It's right there in the Appalachian foothills too,
Oh,
but it's
wow.
an insulated concrete form, which is basically uh, 12 inches of block that's 4 inches styrofoam, uh, concrete, and then more styrofoam on the outside. So your house is basically a concrete filled styrofoam shell. So
Wow.
same thing with the roof. The roof is also the same materials. And then we're burying that and having a green roof on top of that.
So
And
it's going to
nobody in
look like
Huntsville,
a
nobody in the
mountain.
area.
So it's just going to
Exactly.
look like the
If when you
mountain.
come up, yes, when you come up on it from behind, you should just see the walk up that goes up onto our roof. And then when you come back down around the front, it's all brick faced, 8-foot glass doors. So it'll almost look like you've just walked out into Providence somewhere. So
So
industrial from the front and mountain from the back.
kind of like living in a hobbit hole. No windows, nothing other than the front.
Oh, we have sky wells in the bathroom to get more light in there, but
Okay.
we have half the house is a library, of course, because that's just what we do. So we have a
Nice.
large sit-in picture window in the library. It's kind of like a walkout basement where the ground slants down
Yep.
toward the front.
Okay.
So we'll have
Wow.
tiers coming down, and where we have those tiers, we have windows. And then the very back corner, we have a window well that will at least let light in that way.
And how large is this house?
It's only about 1,000 square feet, but
Okay.
our main living space, the living room area, is around 500. I'm sorry, not living room, but it's divided in half, where we have living structure on one side, which is kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, living room, and then the other side is the library, a little corner office, and then where we have all of our solar batteries and all of our utilities for that,
Well,
because
so
it is completely off grid.
wow, that's amazing. So no public electricity, water. I assume it's septic tank.
Septic tank, we're going to have to drill a well. Right now, what we're doing, we have 1,100 feet of water line running from the top of our property, where we have a 300-gallon water tank that we keep refilling the hard way.
Okay.
So we refill that with our truck every time we need to.
So are you collecting water? Are you doing the process where you actually collect rainwater or anything like that?
And no, what we are doing, eventually, once we have the well in place too, we're going to install a couple of ponds to use for irrigation, for where we are going to plant just food for ourselves, not for farming or anything. But so where we have our ponds, we'll have that as a natural collection area.
Okay.
But hopefully our well will supply all the water that we need.
Okay. Now you're going to be off the grid. Are you going to have access to internet or anything like that?
We are through a cell plan. Because
Okay.
the one good thing about it is we found out that no other phone carrier gets a signal out there except for AT&T, and it gets a really good strong signal.
Go AT&T.
So
That's awesome.
yeah, so we'll just use a hotspot out there and run everything off the phones and whatever we have to do.
So now I want to bring this back to writing. How do you think this experience of literally going from 100 acres of landlocked land, because you had mentioned that earlier,
Mhm.
to livable off the grid space and doing it all with your own hands, how do you think that's going to affect you as a writer, and do you think any of your characters will have that experience or anything like that in the future?
There are builders in my books, not quite the same way, but a lot of it, it's more the philosophy behind it is what goes into it, because we are, uh, both of us are strong environmental advocates and sustainability advocates. So all of those things are important to us. And those philosophies, it's one of the biggest reasons that we're doing this build, because we want to show, hey, you can live completely sustainably.
Yeah.
And a lot of those philosophies go into my characters, as as well as the healthy respect that a hard job is not something to be afraid of.
Yeah.
This is one of those processes that you make progress in inches. You can spend a week working and you can't look and see where the progress was. It's
Yeah.
the same way with writing.
Yeah.
Sure, you have the word count, but it always seems like there's so much more ahead than there is behind.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more on that one. Um, Is there any advice you would give to either new authors or authors that are struggling where they're at?
If you're struggling with what you're writing on, write it from a different point of view, write it from a different angle. That's one of those places that having conversations, writing down conversations between my characters really helps. But I've been guilty of this recently where I've just come to a stop in writing, mostly because time is just so limited right now with working and building. But if I were somebody else, if I were telling me what I should be doing right now, it's stop what you're doing, sit down and write a conversation, write a scene from a different point of view.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to share with our readers before we kind of get into my last final bit of questions?
I don't know. I'm kind of excited here about this last final bit of questions.
Okay. Yeah, it's fun. So if you have never seen Inside the Actors Studio, I was a huge avid watcher. My background is in film and theater, so I love Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton. He was famous for his 10 questions that he always did during the interviews. So we're going to just jump right in. Don't think about the questions too much. Just answer with what comes to mind first. Okay?
Okay.
All right. What is your favorite word?
Onomatopoeia.
What is your least favorite word?
I'm tempted to say moist just because everybody's made me hate it by saying it all the time. But that one.
It's right up there, huh?
Yes. I have to say it's been forced there.
Yeah, I understand that. What turns you on?
Candles. Lots and lots of candles.
What turns you off?
Loud noise. Loud voices, especially. I think that's partially from living in an apartment right now.
Yeah. What sound or noise do you love?
The wind and the leaves. Just sitting outside listening to the wind blowing through the trees will put me to sleep.
You are going to get a lot of that in your new home.
Yes, that is the goal.
Yes. What sound or noise do you hate?
Still going with the loud voices.
Okay.
Basically, anytime I hear a lot of people talking, I get upset.
Okay. What is your favorite curse word?
Can I say that here?
Yes.
No, generally just going with damn.
Okay.
It fits in with everything.
Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Forestry, actually.
Which you are kind of attempting now.
Yes, considering we do have to be the steward of our forest.
That's right.
And we're trying to buy another 80 acres, but
is
so
it like
adjacent
to your current 100? Wow.
Yes, it's
okay.
a perfect rectangle right next to ours.
Oh, wow.
With another waterfall that we really want.
Nice. What profession would you not want to do?
Accounting, because I almost did it and I hated every second of it.
Yeah. Last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
That you never stopped trying to make the world better.
Nice. I love that. I love that. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I really appreciate it. I hope you had as much fun as I did.
Oh, this was wonderful. And I don't get to see you nearly enough. So this was a wonderful chance to talk to you too.
Yes. We will be posting, or I will be posting in the description below, all of the links to get her books. So make sure you run out and buy Ashley's books, either ebook or paperback, whatever, but pick them up because you're going to enjoy them. All right, everybody. Bye for now.